Okay, so as I mentioned, our intent is to make MSMEs, enable MSMEs in managing global payments with ease. I wanted to put this fact before we start the conversation in this area. Mr. Shaktikant Das, who is RBI governor, in one of his keynote address at G20 Tech Sprint finale in September 2023, I have taken this quote from there. Notwithstanding the progress made so far, the key challenges to existing cross-border payments continue to be high cost, low speed, limited access, and insufficient transparency. The reason I put this note in this presentation is particularly to understand that we are amongst the fastest growing economy. We have reached to a stage wherein we are counted in some of the top 5 economies of the globe. However, there is a lot to be done. We have robust banking infrastructure, which is stronger than many other economies. We have seen multiple ups and downs, but we have withstand all the challenges that came in front of us and handled it in a much better manner as compared to earlier. With this thought, I'll just throw some light with respect to where we are in terms of export and where it is expected to be. So if we look at 2023 number, our country had an export of $750 billion, of which $450 billion was from manufacturing and 300 was from service. Government and its policies expect to take it to $2 trillion by end of 2028. If we look at the overall export number, the way growth is happening, close to 50% of the share is of MSME in manufacturing exports. And particularly from India perspective, our share is less than 5%. Fintech share, when I say fintech share is less than 5% in processing total export payments. This average is way below the global average. Globally, fintechs process around 20% of the export or cross-border payments. In India, it is less than 5%. There is no quoted number. It could be somewhere between 2 to 3% also, but it is less than 5%. Our internal estimates based on the research that we have done and various enabling policy that government and regulator is bringing in, we believe that by 2028, SMEs alone will contribute to close to $500 billion to Indian export. This is in manufacturing segment only. And of that, 20% of the flows would be facilitated by fintechs. And 100% of the fintech flow is expected to be from SMEs. The reason we have this hypothesis and belief is because fintechs are coming up with a lot of solutions which are apt for the market, which are meeting the changing needs of the market, changing needs of the industry, how business is done. We see today, historically, we were doing B2B export as a country wherein, bilateral contracts were happening. Then came Amazon, Walmart, eBay. They started e-commerce export. And a lot of SMEs have started their own export, their website through which they are getting the orders and exporting. There are a lot of B2B platforms that have come up, which are helping exporters to reach to global market or global customers. So all these needs are having different kind of use cases, which we will touch upon in detail. But fintechs are more equipped and geared up to address the challenges particularly faced in this segment. Before starting BRISKPE, we did a survey of close to 500 SMEs. What we figured out is essentially mentioned on this particular slide, and some of you will be able to correlate to it. If we say in India particularly or in APAC, 80% of the trades are financed. So when a trade is financed and there is any delay in payment realization, it leads to additional interest outgo, which is a burden on MSMEs. 79% of the SMEs said that they send sample, and samples particularly are of small value, realizing that after so many cost of bank deduction and other thing becomes a major challenge for them. So they send these samples free of cost because cost of realizing it much higher than the sample cost itself. So 79% of SMEs lose near about 1% of export value in samples only. 44% of the MSMEs we spoke, they said they want to set up their own website and do the sales from market. However, they lack efficient PGs with global capabilities. Now, if we look at another aspect, 38% of the MSMEs avoid trades in non-USD, Euro, GBP currencies because it involves cross-currency conversion. Most of the banks that MSMEs are dealing with are not equipped to give a cross currency conversion or maybe conversion rate for exotic currencies. So that's where they use predominantly USD, Euro, or GBP as the preferred currency rather than any other currency. 28% of the exporters mentioned that typically they don't execute orders of less than $2,000 because buyers have a local payment preference. Now, this local payment preference is because just like we are MSME, we are facing challenges in our own country in terms of inadequate infrastructure, financial infrastructure to cater to such payments. In their country also, they are facing this issue. Their banks are very costly and they are not able to facilitate transactions which are, typically less than $2,000. And they want to make local payment like NEFT RTGS in their geography. 26% of the MSMEs said that they start a new banking relationship only because their existing banks are not efficient in handling the trade flows. And particularly, many of these aspects you would have realized when ADPMS came into the picture. RBI digitized the whole payments export ecosystem, wherein all the goods which are being exported, there is an entry which is created on EDPMS through customs, and that has to be regularized. Now, many of the banks till date do not have a digital infrastructure in place to particularly facilitate faster regularization of these bills so that exporters can enjoy duty drawback. Core challenges, the way we have found through survey and in the market, these are the six core challenges we are highlighting over here. Cross-border payments are expensive. Global average of cross-border payment is 5 to 7%, wherein FX cost itself is 3 to 4.5%. When I talk about FX cost, the cost is particularly if today's interbank rate is say 83, exporters receive the money, get the credit in their bank, but when they do the conversion, they figure out that conversion has happened at 80 rupees, 81 rupees, 81.5. There itself, they are losing in terms of FX. Why? Because banks are not giving that much importance, particularly to uh, banks are not giving focus, particularly for small value payments. They are only focusing on large value payments and not giving adequate window to MSMEs to dealing room, that treasury dealing room, wherein they can book the rates and go ahead. Cross-border payments are slow as well. It may take anywhere between 3 to 7 days. Various reasons could be the involvement of correspondent banks. The funds are initiated by a particular bank in US or Europe, which is a small bank. They do not have a connectivity with Indian banks, so they remit to, for example, they send it to Citibank or Wells Fargo. Then Wells Fargo and Citibank further remit it to India. And there is involvement of multiple correspondent bank, and each correspondent bank adds to the delay. The transactions are opaque in nature. Most of you would correlate with that your customer said that I have made the payment. You continue to follow up with the bank that has my payment arrived. Have we received the same? Your banker says, no, sir, abhi tak to paisa aaya nahi hai. Once it is received, we will let you know. And time is lost in the whole process. You don't know कि पैसा आ गया है, वो return हुआ है, कहीं और है, आ गया है, क्या हुआ है. So all these challenges are particularly faced and lot of manual calling is to be done. If we talk about access, typically in India, we have 24 by 5 banking access. and limited access to FI. When I say limited access to FI, I particularly want to focus on the fact that Tier A, if we look at Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore, Kolkata, or Ahmedabad, the larger cities, concentration of all the banks is there. Each SME is dealing with two to three, or sometimes I have seen if a customer has turnover of more than 100, 150 crore, then they are dealing with 10 to 15 banks. But if we go to Tier B or Tier C, unfortunately, not enough banks are there. Even bank staff are not equipped enough to handle the kind of queries or kind of requirement that an exporter may be having. So that is where I'm saying limited access to FI is that all the global banks which have good capabilities in terms of digital solutions, in terms of providing you multiple type of trade structure, financing structure, payment structure, they are not there in Tier B, Tier C geography. Local FIs, again, there are a lot of cooperative banks or small tier banks, local area banks that we deal with in India today. They lack services. Most of the services are like branch mein jao, baitho, wait karo, document do. So services are not adequate, which helps exporter to further grow. These transactions are, again, as I touched upon in multiple points, these are manual transaction. And there is an error rate of 4 to 6%. There is a lot of reliance on phone and email. Email से document आया है, आप download करो, रखो, कभी computer crash हुआ, कुछ हुआ, you don't have access to it. You have to ask for it again. बीच में audit आता है, regulatory audit आता है, then again you have to reach out to bank कि मुझे 3 महीने का statement दे दो, मुझे charges अपने check करने हैं, या मेरे को FIRC इशू करके दे दो. सो ऑल दीज चैलेंजेस आर पर्टिकुलरली सीन, और हर चीज के लिए एक फोन और फोन कम्युनिकेशन और ईमेल की जरूरत है. If you look at reconciliation, I'm sure most of you who do goods export will correlate to it. The reconciliation piece is a big headache even today. Bank realization certificate or FIRA, matching both and submitting the request again and again. If there is a shortfall in terms of amount receipt, go get a CA certificate, which is leading to delay in various duties and drawbacks and tax breaks that exporter enjoys. So these are some of the core challenges. If you look at how this is impacting an MSME, while the pointers I mentioned might be known to all of you, but if you try to quantify the number itself, high cost, low margin. More and more you pay to bank, your margin is going low. The loss of business, some of the aspect that I mentioned, that exporters are not executing orders for export value of less than $2,000 because buyer has local preference, you are actually losing business. India or Indian exporters have that opportunity, but they are not able to execute that business because there is no solution available. Compliance cost, again, is very high. When I say compliance cost, it's not only the cost that you pay to bank in various transactions, like bank charges you on FX, bank charges you separately on FIRC, then GST on top of it, then again for the BRC charges. And you have to keep one or two people sitting in your accounts division to track all these things, coordinate with the bank. There is an employee cost as well. So all these things are impacting. Uh, if not about export, I will talk about remittances piece. Majority of the remittances done from India towards outward payment for, say, travel, education, or hospitality. In all these segments, India is remitting close to $100 billion. Average cost of cross-border payment is $6.5 billion. Can you imagine, out of $100 billion, this $6 billion is going towards cost only? If companies like us are able to create a save over there, जहाँ पे एक्सपोर्टर्स का पैसा बचता है, ये अगर हमने 6% की जगह उस कॉस्ट को कम करके 1% कर दिया, तो $5 बिलियन हमारी इकोनॉमी में रीडिप्लॉय होगा, या आपके बिजनेस में रीडिप्लॉय होगा. इट विल हैव अ रिपल इफेक्ट इन टर्म्स ऑफ योर ग्रोथ ऑफ योर बिजनेस. सो दैट इज one of the major impact which goes unnoticed. While regulator has highlighted, everybody has highlighted, but there is a restriction. All of us have a as behavior wherein we resist the change. But any change that comes in front of us, we should evaluate and accept wherever benefits are there. I have spoken about core challenges and its impact so far. If there are challenges specific to your industry, your company, the geographies you are dealing in, please text in the chat box. We'll take up all these questions once we finish this presentation. Here I'm talking about broad level strategies. We'll touch upon some of the aspects with respect to end-to-end life cycle of the export as well. That what can be done, which keeps your business sustainable for a longer period of time. But on this page, I'm talking about strategies wherein what could be the critical strategies. If I talk about deriving efficiencies, there are multiple use cases that your business might have. It's not necessary that BRISKPE may be solving all the problem. It's not necessary that bank may be solving the problem. It may be possible that PayPal might be solving certain problem. You might go to a particular payment gateway like PayU, which can solve your problem. So you have to identify a use case. If we talk about small value transactions, then definitely accepting payment by card helps because card has a particular MDR. Say you are charged 3%, then you are up to $500 or so, you are only paying $15 on that transaction. The moment volume goes up, that percentage becomes difficult for the business. Similarly, if you have a website to accept the payment, you don't have an option but to accept payment by wallet or card only. You can't experiment because then dropout rates will increase from your website. People might not like to log into their net banking, make the payment and get order confirmation after 6 hours or 12 hours. And if you have a large value transaction wherein you have bilateral contract with the buyer, regularly you will be selling a particular good to them, then there are solutions like virtual account kind of solution. Or if there are very high value transactions wherein which are not permitted to fintechs particularly process such values, like RBI particularly has stipulated in payment aggregator cross-border guideline that we can facilitate per invoice transaction up to 25 lakhs. Then if the invoice value is up to $28,000, $29,000, fintechs can facilitate. But if the value itself is large, you have to go to bank. Again, working with player with a known background. The reason I'm mentioning about it, you need to understand that whenever you start dealing with a new party, you don't want to destabilize your system. You don't want to create inefficiencies in your system just because of cost. Cost is one aspect that a player can offer you. But apart from cost, there is something like reliability. Are they compliant in terms of regulation? Um, are they giving you all the necessary support as and when needed? These factors are to be looked at. And whenever there is a decision of change that happens to bring in efficiency, multiple factors are to be considered. Again, transparent cost structure. You need to be very clear upfront, be it a payment service company like us who is providing you the service, or bank or any other party which is giving you the service. They need to be transparent that X and Y are the cost. There cannot be an element of Z which is coming up afterwards, which you get charged to. So you need to be very clear that what charges are there. Evaluate the technology. This remains one of the major aspect. Whether you're working with a bank or you're working with a fintech, please evaluate based on your understanding that do they have adequate technology in place. एक क्लासिक एग्जांपल देता हूं. अगर फोन पे जब मार्केट में आया था, या एयरटेल और वोडाफोन when they are offering their services, the onboarding is completely digital. But when you talk about, I'll not name banks because it doesn't look good on certain banks or any other fintech company. When they come to onboard you, वो आपसे 100 डॉक्यूमेंट साइन करा के लेके जाते हैं. फिर आप फॉलो अप करते रहते हो, भाई मेरा अकाउंट खुला क्या, अभी खुला गया नहीं सर, एक क्वेरी आई है, ऑपरेशंस ने एक क्वेरी दी है. व्हाई डू दे हैव दिस ऑपरेशनल एफिशिएंसीज if they can't digitize the customer experience front? What must they be doing at the back end? You can imagine from that. पीछे कितना मैनुअल वर्क कर रहे होंगे. सो उनकी इनएफिशिएंसीज आपके सिस्टम की भी इनएफिशिएंसीज बन जाएंगी if you work with them. Similarly, is the solution available all the time as and when you need? Whether you are on the road, you are in your factory, you are in the warehouse, or you are sitting in your office cabin, at all time the solution should be available to you. How easy is it to use the solution? Is the user interface सिंप्लीफाइड एनफ? इज इट टेलिंग यू क्लियरली कि अभी करना क्या है, कि अगर आपको कोई डॉक्यूमेंट डाउनलोड करना है तो कहाँ से करना है? 50 सॉल्यूशन घुसा देते हैं अपने इंटरफेस में मोस्ट ऑफ द फिनटेक और बैंक्स, और फिर आप ढूंढते रहते हो यार मेरे को तो बस स्टेटमेंट देखना है, मेरे को बस एक डाउनलोड करना है, मेरे को ये देखना है मेरा पेमेंट आया है कि नहीं। वो ढूंढना अपने आप में चैलेंजिंग हो जाता है। टाइम हैज अ वैल्यू। आपके 5 मिनट की वैल्यू हंड्रेड्स एंड थाउजेंड्स ऑफ डॉलर हो सकती है बिजनेस में, अगर वो टाइम जाएगा तो। सो यू नीड टू लुक एट दीज critical aspects before adopting a particular solution. Regulatory compliance, this remains one of the very critical aspect, because while the entities working in payment service need to adhere to regulatory guidelines with respect to FIEO, IND, RBI guidelines, they need to do a direct tie-up, it has an indirect impact on you and your business. Imagine a situation wherein you are working with a particular financial institution, आपका पैसा है वहां पे, they are not regulated, कल को उसको बैन कर दिया जाता है और उसकी कंपनी के प्रोमोटर्स या कंपनी बंद करके चली जाती है, आपका पैसा तो अटक गया ना। सो यू नीड टू हैव दोज क्लैरिटी ऑल्सो अपफ्रंट कि हाँ ये रेगुलेटेड है नहीं है, ये कहाँ पे है, ये मैं किसी यूएस की कंपनी से सर्विस ले रहा हूँ जिसका इंडिया में कोई प्रेजेंस ही नहीं है, या इंडियन कंपनी से सर्विस ले रहा हूँ जिसका इंडिया में प्रेजेंस है। कल को पुलिस कंपनी के लिए भी बहुत सिंपल है एक सॉल्यूशन को लॉन्च करना, अगर उसको लाइसेंसेस नहीं लेना है। इट्स लाइक समबडी कैन कम टू मी, बोलेगा यार अपने प्लेटफॉर्म का ना स्क्रीन चेंज करके मुझे दे दो, बैकएंड में तुम ही करो, वाइट लेवल मैं करूंगा। वो अपने नाम से बेच रहा है, बट डू यू वांट टू वर्क विद दैट प्लेयर, और यू वांट टू वर्क विद डायरेक्टली प्लेयर्स हु आर ऑफरिंग यू द सर्विस, सो दैट कल को जब आपको किसी को अप्रोच करना है किसी क्वेरी के लिए, यू कैन रीच आउट टू अ स्पेसिफिक ईमेल आईडी, स्पेसिफिक कॉन्टैक्ट नंबर, स्पेसिफिक पर्सन who is sitting in your area. So these things are to be seen, and again, are they capable of serving you beyond payment? We are a growing economy. It becomes absolutely necessary when we get into a relationship, we don't solve one problem, we solve multiple problems. So payment is one area, but payment ke beyond, can this company give me advisory? Can it suggest me something? Can it give me other services related to say logistics, financing? Do they have such tie-up? They may not be offering it directly, but if I need it, will they be able to connect me to somebody? This becomes again very critical aspect. And last point, risk, fraud, and anti-money laundering guidelines. You have to safeguard yourself from all the risk, monetary loss risk, fraud risk that may happen with you, because you are dealing with money, we are dealing with money. And of course, anti-money laundering guidelines are applicable. Any dirty money which goes through the system, it is a risk for payment system player as well as for the customer. We'll touch upon some of these aspects when we go to subsequent pages, but when we look at these risks, the risks are not only related to money, but also with respect to data privacy, whether they are keeping their data secure. We have had example, and without quoting name, I'll say a lot of you might have observed, आपने किसी एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे रजिस्टर किया और उसके बाद टेलीकॉलिंग की बॉम्बार्डमेंट चालू हो गई आपके फोन नंबर पे। यू स्टार्ट रियलाइजिंग ये क्या हुआ यार, मैंने तो किसी को नंबर दिया ही नहीं है, आई हैव नॉट गिवन माय नंबर टू एनीबॉडी, मेरे को इतने कॉल क्यों आ रहे हैं? That means the number that you gave to a particular company few days back is selling your contact number, is selling your contact detail. मेल पे रोज आता रहता है, यू वी हैव अ प्री अप्रूव्ड लोन ऑफ 5 लाख, 2 लाख, 3 लाख, ऑलरेडी लोन अप्रूव हो गया है, बस क्लिक करो, और क्लिक करने के बाद फिर वो आपको फोन करने लगेंगे। सो बी अवेयर हाउ योर डेटा इज बीइंग ट्रीटेड। इज दिस कंपनी रेगुलेटरली restricted to कीप योर डेटा सेफ? क्योंकि अगर वो लाइसेंस नहीं है तो वो नहीं रखेगा, वो फ्लाई बाय ऑपरेटर है, फ्लाई बाय नाइट ऑपरेटर है, आज ऑपरेट करेगा कल निकल जाएगा, उसका काम है खाली डेटा चोरी करना। सो यू नीड टू बी अवेयर ऑफ सच थिंग्स ऑल्सो। नाउ if we look at some of the strategies again, or maybe opportunities, this is a beautiful report that we found in PayPal's MSME service survey, and a report published by DBS, Development Bank of Singapore. 44% of MSMEs are investing in e-commerce storefront. Now, a lot of these changes started happening after COVID lockdown. All of us know कितने challenges आए थे. Doing business physically became a challenge. But yes, digital solutions also became one of the way through which you can sell more, reach out to more customer. At the same time, हम सबकी आदत है, वी आर एडिक्टेड टू ट्रेडिशनल वे ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस। मेरा धंधा ऐसे ही चल रहा है, फिजिकल वे में चल रहा है, मेरा अकाउंटेंट संभालता है, बट नो, For your efficiency, you need to invest money to constantly upgrade your infrastructure, क्योंकि business grow करेगा, requirements grow करेंगी. You also need to grow as per the growth requirement of business. So a lot of companies have started setting up, they have started investing in cross-border payments and FX platform. They have started investing in cash management platform. This slide is only talking about that. If we look at, okay, now this slide becomes a bit critical, where which I was mentioning. I'll touch upon various compliance related aspects later on. As an exporter or importer, as I mentioned, directly you are liable to adhere to certain guidelines, and indirectly also you are liable to adhere to certain guidelines. Some of the critical guidelines in cross-border payments are these four: Foreign Exchange Management Act, which define the various type of transactions that any individual or company can get into, whether it is current account in nature or capital account in nature. It is covered under that. If you are into export of goods and service master direction issued by Reserve Bank of India is applicable to you. PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, is applicable on everybody, not only on financial institutions, but everybody. So you also need to be very careful when you are dealing with a party, whether you are not facilitating or getting into a transaction wherein you are allowing a dirty money to be passed through you or coming to you. Again, Payment Settlement Act and Payment Aggregator Cross-Border is one of the guidelines which is indirectly applicable to you, because whichever party or whichever payment institution you are dealing with, they are subject to this guideline in India. As long as they are adhering to this, yes, there is a definite degree of safety that you have. Now, I've tried to capture few stages over here, which is contracting, contractual terms definition, shipment or delivery, payment, and regulatory compliances that an exporter has to do. And what are the various risks that arises during these stages? And what are the various good to have practices that you should have? Contracting remains very critical, because whenever, say, BRISKPE is dealing with your money or bank is dealing with your money, often they may ask who has remitted money, why have they remitted money, is there a formal contract that you have with the remitter? So formal contract is necessary, which should define the contractual, which should define that yes, you are into contract with this person. If there is no formal contract, there should be at least an email communication that you should be having, which essentially ensures that yes, you got an order and this is the order you are fulfilling. For new customers, speak to you for payment and for new customers, particularly speak to your payment and banking partners. The reason I'm saying this, you may be sourcing a customer, say, from UAE, US, Ukraine. Speak to your banker or payment service partner whether you can get money from these countries. Is there a sanction restriction requirement that you have to adhere to? Is there an India specific requirement, or there could be a requirement which is imposed by global regulators? So speak to your payment partner before getting into such contract. Many a times in my banking career, I have seen कि सर हमने तो माल भेज दिया, अब पैसा आना है और आप पैसा दे नहीं रहे हो, अटक गया सैंक्शन में. मुझे क्या पता था वो पार्टी का नाम सैंक्शन में है, मुझे क्या पता था वो जहां से भेज रहे हैं. Many times it may happen. So clarify source of fund also that I mentioned. You may also ask, boss, you are a party in US, you are remitting money from US only. क्योंकि कल को काम होने के बाद ये नहीं होना चाहिए कि दे विल से कि नहीं मैं अपनी यूके की सब्सिडरी से पैसा रिमिट करूंगा, तो आपका पैसा अटक जाएगा क्योंकि रेमिटर नेम मिसमैच आ जाएगा. आप में से जिन्होंने भी एक्सपोर्ट किया, you would correlate to those issues. Again, contractual terms should clearly define quality, quantity, and payment terms that you are going to have with that party. And please make yourself aware of regulatory guidelines with respect to payment or export of goods or services that you are subjected to. Again, shipment or delivery, avoid brokers. There are agencies which are licensed by uh, large shipping companies, airline companies. These are licensed. It is published in their website that they are directly licensed. Avoid brokers, because as a proof of delivery, proof of shipment, you need to have airway bill, shipping bill, bill of lading in your record. So अगर broker है, हो सकता है शुरू में दे, कल को नहीं देगा, then ultimately you will get stuck with your regulatory compliance. So be very clear with that. When you are doing a shipment, be very clear with all the terms, whether ship to, bill to parties are different. Is there a commission involved, particularly for this kind of export transaction, which you will be remitting to a party? Again, all these things are governed under export of goods and service guideline, but you need to disclose it to the customs authority. क्योंकि एक बार शिपमेंट चला गया, कस्टम्स अथॉरिटी को डिक्लेयर कर दिया, बाद में अगर आपको रिबेट और कमीशन देना है तो यू गेट स्टक, एंड दैट इज द टाइम पीपल ट्राई टू लुक एट ऑल्टरनेट वेज कि मैं कर कैसे सकता हूँ वो बताओ। फिर वो जैसे ही साइड का रास्ता पकड़ा, देन यू गेट स्टक। एक बार पैसा चला गया तो रेगुलेशन में आप इधर भी अटके उधर भी अटके। सो बी वेरी क्लियर विद दोज एस्पेक्ट्स। Again, in payment, there are some good practices. Remitter details should match with respect to invoice. If there is a mismatch, or there could be genuine cases, there could be non-genuine cases also. Genuine cases, many times it happens, your buyer has appointed a third party to make all the payments. So remitter name mismatch may happen. You may procure these documents, produce it to your bank or payment institution. They will facilitate the closure, or they will allow the payment to be processed. Otherwise, it has to match with the name mentioned in the invoice. Use correct purpose codes. Changing purpose code becomes very painful with the banks, and most of you might have dealt with that. Uh, if it is advanced, let it be advanced. Shipment has not happened, take it in advance. Many times it happens, bank or payment institution is asking that you are saying this is the payment again, delivery of goods, and they ask कि यार सर शिपिंग बिल या बिल ऑफ लेडिंग का डिटेल है क्या आपके पास, या एयरवे बिल है क्या? सो यू मे टेक अ कॉल कि हाँ ठीक है, अभी एडवांस करके ले लो, बाद में देखेंगे, बट जब आप रेगुलराइज करने जाओगे यू विल गेट स्टक. So be very clear, use right purpose codes that are needed. Avoid changing banks repeatedly. This is not a general practice, but typically if you are using a bank, it helps in reconciliation कि सारे पेमेंट वहीं पे आ रहे हैं. बार बार बैंक चेंज करने से again reconciliation hassles go up. Use most efficient route. We will be touching upon this solution, how most efficient routes are available. Uh, some of the use cases I mentioned, if there is a e-commerce sale, there is a digital sales wherein party wants to make payment by card only, you can use some of the solutions like PayU in the market, card solutions offered by them. If you want to use, there are large value payments, you can bring it through bank. If there are transactions which are between large value, about $29,000, or higher than $500, less than $29,000 and higher than $500, you can definitely use services like ours, which can help you with the most efficient solutions. Use regulated player. Again, this is very critical. Don't use unregulated player. Whenever you are dealing with foreign parties, foreign payment service provider, be very clear whether they are regulated in India or not. They may be regulated in overseas geography, so they may process your fund. That kind of flexibility is there in financial system. But एक बार पैसा आने के बाद जब आपको FIRA चाहिए फॉर रेगुलराइजेशन ऑफ द बिल, उसके लिए आपको उस बैंक के पीछे भागना पड़ेगा जिसके थ्रू उसने पेमेंट किया. सो use regulated player, it always helps. And again, regulatory compliances and duty drawbacks. You need to find a player which can help with bill realization certificate, or their banker can help you with bill realization certificate, because timely closure on EDPMS, IDPMS is very critical. It delays the duty drawback and also increases the regulatory scrutiny if these aspects are not completed.